children. Professionally, Stephen is a trained architect with over 25 years of experience in the market. He currently serves as the Group Chief Executive of Daybreak 60. He also serves on boards of various business organizations where he brings various expertise in strategic planning and operational excellency. Please join me to welcome Pastor Stephen Ochola, a longtime friend, as he shares with us this evening. Stephen, you're welcome.
Thank you so much, Dr. Florence, and good evening to you all. It's such a wonderful joy and an honor to be back again here with Inspire. And I was so delighted when I got the invitation to come. I was here last year, and the build-up we are having, I believe it is God-led for us to build on to where we got to last year, knowing that it's now time for Africa to manifest. It's such a big blessing that we are all here together again to ignite ourselves. And I believe, God has fed us enough, a lot, for us to begin to bear fruit. I'll just share my screen. Yes, this should be. Oh, it says screen sharing stopped. Share. Okay, are you able to see my screen?
Yes, please. We can see it.
Okay, great.
Not yet.
Dr. Florence, do you see my screen? You sound like you
Yes,
don't see
yes,
it.
yes, please.
You do, eh? All right. Yeah.
I can see your screen. Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, I was made to understand that we will do about 30 minutes of the presentation and then go on into a Q&A session, because this is meant to be an interactive session. So I'll probably just lay down a few things. Solomon has already done excellently well. He has covered a lot of ground. And some of the things, it might sound like I'm repeating, but it's just for the sake of emphasis. He's already laid down a lot of the things that we need to do, and I would want to build onto that because I believe that there is a new thinking for Africa with the current global reset. We'll just look at this word global reset, look at a bit of the history around global reset, and then we will move on to what I believe is Africa's response from a biblical inspired perspective. So it will just be a very simple session. We'll look at the global resets over the last several years of man's history as recorded in the history that we know. And then we shall look at the current global reset, what is happening and how we need to respond. Now, a global reset, in my opinion, is when a new disruptive knowledge begins to be implemented at a global scale, ushering new ways of doing things. This is when man has been doing things in a certain way. Then all of a sudden, there is entrance of new knowledge. Now, when this new knowledge enters, it disrupts the way things are done. And normally, this new knowledge comes initially from the discovery point, then it goes to experimentation. From experimentation, it goes to testing, it goes to scaling, and then finally implementation. So at the point of implementation, there is a shift. There is a shift of cultures, there is a shift of economies, there's a shift of society. Things change because of the introduction of the new disruptive knowledge, which is being implemented. So that is just for us to be able to understand when we talk about global reset, what is it that we are looking at? Now, at points of global reset, there's normally two things that interact. I have a small graph there which shows the blue is the normal, then the red is the new. So as the two interact, then the normal becomes the abnormal and the abnormal becomes the normal, meaning that the old ways become obsolete, and then the forgotten or the new seemingly neglected ways become now the normal. And during that time of exchange, there is a lot of turbulence, and that's what we call the global reset, because everyone is campering for influence. Everyone wants to be at the top of the chain. So that is what normally happens during the time of global reset. I'll just go quickly through history. Then I would want to spend a little bit more time on the biblical perspective. Now, history tells us that we've had different eras. There's the early civilization from 3,500 to 500 BCE. And within that early civilization, we had a number of global resets. There was the Mesopotamian civilization, the Egyptian, the Indus Valley, the Chinese, and then the Mesoamerican civilizations. Now, these civilizations, most of them rotated and revolved around learning how to write, introduction of the wheel, urbanization, and then the legal codes. That was the reset that came in during that time. Civilizations began to learn how to record, and they introduced the wheel. The wheel started to help transportation. It started to help in many of the different things. So that era of civilization also came in with this global reset. Those who stayed behind, did not benefit from this reset. The second era is the classical civilization, which is recorded to be from 500 BCE to 500 CE. Now, that's where we have the Greek civilization, the Roman, and then the Mauryan and Gupta empires. The focus of this civilization was when now city-state organizations began to come up, and intellectual inquiry. Man started to inquire everything that he was doing. That was like the main areas of influence. Then the third era is the medieval Islamic, African, and Asian civilization. This was from 500 to 1500 CE. We had in that area, we have the Islamic Golden Age, we have the African kingdoms like Ghana, Mali, Songhai, then we have the Tang and Song dynasties in China. Now, these civilizations, the breakout point or their reset rotated around global trade. That's when now civilizations started to discover global trade, and global blocks started being formed, meaning alliances. We started knowing the Far East, started knowing all these different alliances of blocks, global blocks. Then the fourth is the European Renaissance and Enlightenment, which was from the 1300s to the 1800s. Now that was the Renaissance and then the Age of Exploration. Basically, the focus was revival of art, science, and humanism. Then the last era is the Industrial Revolutions. Now, these are four. So far, we've recorded 4 different industrial revolutions. All these happened from the 18th century to the present. There was the first industrial revolution, which focused mainly on mechanization. Then the second industrial revolution, telecommunication. Then the third industrial revolution was computing. And then finally, the fourth industrial revolution is artificial intelligence. Now, I bring this for us to be able to understand and see that over the years, the world has come to a place of reset when new things are being introduced. So today, Africa stands at a place of reset. We are standing squarely at a point where things are changing so fast. Solomon has already mentioned some of the things that are the areas of influence. But I have just highlighted 4 areas here, which today's global reset seems to be pointing at. The main theme is of the global reset of today is a one world system, globalism. Most of the things are pushing towards a one world, and there are four thematic areas. Technological acceleration, that's where you have the AI, automation, digital currencies. All these are unifying. They are canceling the individualism of nations and making a conglomeration of one global state. Then there are issues of environment. Solomon has again mentioned a lot. Environmental sustainability. This has become a question. Climate change, green energy. Of course, these things, we have different thoughts around this area, but it's a key thematic area for the one world today. There is more control about the environment. You can no longer do what you want to do on the environment immediately around you without having permission from a global entity, because it is pushing towards this globalism. Now, that's the reset we are looking at. Then there are, of course, global health systems. Health systems are now being globalized. This is post-COVID recovery. The isolation of different health interventions are now being cancelled out and lumped up into one global system. Then obviously there's the shifting geopolitical powers. The world is becoming multipolar. Now these are the characteristics of today's global reset. Those are the 4 areas that we are seeing. So Africa is staring straight into these 4 areas. And what must Africa do? Now I want to just give a few characteristics of global resets, which can help us now begin to, to assemble a response. First and foremost, global reset characteristics, they are becoming more urgent. If you look at the chart I showed earlier on, the span of years was quite wide, from 3,500 to 500 CE. You know, that's a very big time. Now, when I came down the graph, you come to the industrial revolutions. They all happened from the 18th century to date. So the years are fewer. So there's an urgency. There are more global resets happening in shorter time spans. That's the characteristics of the global resets. And it's got to be important when we see assemble our response. The second thing is that there is a layering. There is no global reset which stands on its own. They all build on the old success of the old global reset. In other words, the new technology which comes up, the new thinking, the new pieces of knowledge build on the former pieces of knowledge. Then there's the singularity which is happening. I've already mentioned. You know, in the first instance, we saw that global reset in terms of the early civilizations were happening in many different places, but now they're happening in one place, in one world. So there is a singularity in terms of the global reset responses. So I just wanted to quickly run through this because I know Solomon has already laid a very solid background to this. But the idea for us we need to pick from this is that Africa is standing at a place where we are in a place of turbulence. When one system is dying out and a new system is coming in, that cusp there is a place of turbulence. And during turbulence, people have to find their place. So Africa is right in that place right now. And I would want to now go back to our response from a biblical perspective, Africa's response. And I'm going to use the scripture that is our theme for this summit. And it's from Romans chapter 8, verse 19. I'll read 19 to 22. It says, "For the creation waits in eager expectation." I've highlighted eager expectation. "For the children of God to be revealed. For the creation was subjected to frustration, not by its own choice, but by the will of the one who subjected it, in hope that the creation itself will be liberated from its bondage to decay and brought into the freedom and glory of the children of God. We know that the whole creation has been groaning, as in the pains of childbirth, right up to the present time." Now, let me just explain this a little bit. Paul here is saying that creation is in a state of waiting for a revelation of the children of God. Where are these children of God? Why are they not being revealed? Then it goes on to say that for the creation was subjected to frustration, not by its own choice. In other words, the frustration that creation is experiencing, it did not create it for itself, but by the will of the one who subjected it. Now, we need to understand that this scripture is telling us that there is someone who is in charge of creation, and this person has chosen to leave creation in frustration. But we also see that this same creation is waiting eagerly for the children of God to be revealed. Now, this brings us to a place of understanding that actually creation is waiting for the children of God. And the children of God have the power to either frustrate or to release creation into the freedom and glory of the children of God. That's what Paul is saying here. Then in verse 22, he says, we know that the whole creation has been groaning as in the pains of childbirth right up to the present time. This means that creation has been pregnant but has failed to give birth up until today. Now, this is a very powerful statement that Paul is making. We all know that pregnancy is for but a time. It is defined. But then now we see that there seems to be someone who is in charge of the pregnancy of creation and has not done what it is needed to be done so that this child of creation can be born. And it is saying that right up to the present time, meaning that because of the frustration that creation has been subjected to, creation has not been able to progress. It has not been able to give birth because it has been held back in captivity. Now, a lot of talk of creation by Paul pushes us to go back to Genesis chapter 2, where God created. And I want to see how we, the children of God, fit into this picture. And this will now help us come back and formulate a response for Africa, what we need to do. Genesis chapter 2, verse 19. Now the Lord God had formed, the ones in red there in the brackets, I added them myself. Formed means created, creation. Out of the ground, all the wild animals and all the birds in the sky. Then, after God created, he brought them to the man to see what he would name them. And whatever the man called each living creature, that was its name. So the man gave names to all the livestock, the birds in the sky, and all the wild animals. Now, this chapter 2, verse 19 and verse 20 is so profound in answering Romans chapter 8, verse 19. Here we see that God created, but God did not name. Now, what is a name? We need to understand that a name is a destiny. A name is a functionality. A name is an identity. A name unlocks purpose. So here God created, but it was man meant to activate. Man was meant to release. Man was meant to give birth from this creation. And God, interestingly, created and then brought to the man to see what he would name them. In other words, God gave man absolute power to name. Now, the naming was meant to give creation function, creation reason, creation purpose, creation an end, creation destiny. So when Paul says that creation waits in earnest expectation because it has been frustrated, what Paul is saying is that God is waiting for man, God is waiting for Africa to name his creation. And whatever Africa names that creation, that thing that will be its name. So no wonder creation is held up in frustration. No wonder it is waiting earnestly, because God has done his part. Creation has been created. Now man, in this case represented by Africa, has failed to do his part. Because we see that in verse 20, man then went ahead to give names to all the livestock, to all the birds, and to all the wild animals. You remember I mentioned to you that we have a layering. We have a layering of civilizations. We have a layering of resets. Now, God formed the initial layer. God created the kingdoms. If you read in Genesis chapter 1, there were 7 kingdoms that God created. Now, out of those 7 kingdoms, man has been layering other creations, layering, and these are the different civilizations or the global resets that happen. Man is just building on the basis of what God created. And man is doing verse 20 of chapter 2. Man is busy. Up until today, man is meant to give names to all the creation. And now we should lift our eyes away from believing that creation is only birds, livestock, wild animals, which is stated here in verse 20. Man, from this, he moved on, he created systems. Remember, I told you some of the things. Writing, man created writing, man created organization, man created systems, man created kingdoms, man created, all these are different creations, because God brings these things to man for man to name. Now, man has been failing in terms of naming these things. And some of the reasons why we find ourselves in such a place as Africa is we have believed that we are not in this privileged position. But here God does not segregate. He says he brought them to man. And whatever the man called each living creature, that was its name. Now, this is a fundamental thing that would unlock us to understand why Paul was saying that creation waits in earnest expectation. Creation groans, like one who is in labor up until the present day, It's telling us that we know that the whole creation has been groaning as in the pains of childbirth right up to the present time. In other words, creation is meant to be liberated with a name. Creation is meant to be liberated with a destiny, with a new purpose. But then there is a hold up. There is a hold up that the child is not being born. The child is not coming forth. And it is because man is not giving names. But we see that God has done his part. Even Africa today, we have been waiting, we have been praying, we have been seeking God. But God is saying that I have already created. And I'm standing waiting to see what you are going to name. What are you going to call your economy? What are you going to call your politics? What are you going to call your culture? Because whatever you call it, that will become its name. That will become its destiny. That will become its purpose. That will become its end game. So the call right now for Africa is to stand up, to begin to name. Everything that we see around us, it's not fate. It is a failure of naming. Other people have named them for us, and we're living with those names, and we think we can't change them. But God says that I have brought these situations to you to see what you will name them. Now, as we end, I want this to be a lot more interactive, this session. So I'll give a little bit more time for us to interact. There are 3 things I want to bring out. The pillars for this new biblically inspired thinking. Number 1, as Africa, we must understand that we have an equal seat at the table. We have an equal seat at the table based on the call of Genesis chapter 2, verse 19. We have an equal seat at the table. Every thinking that is going to bring Africa to a realization of having a place in this global reset must first and foremost bring Africans to the thinking that we have an equal seat at the table. Name any sector, any area, anything, be it sports, be it culture, be it music, be it fashion, be it entertainment, be it media, be it whatever it is. Africans have always thought that they don't have a seat at the table. Africans have always thought that their culture is second. Africans have always thought that their fashions are not the best. Africans have always thought that their skins are not the best. Africans have always thought that there's something better outside there. But we see Genesis chapter 2 says, God has brought all these things to us, the children, his children, to name. So number one pillar is we must come to the realization that we have an equal seat at the table. The second pillar for this biblically inspired thinking for Africa is Africa needs to move away from consumption to co-creation, because we have a seat at the table of creation. We have a seat at the table of naming. Africa has been a lot in a place where someone else has to make things for them. Someone else creates better than them. Someone else is responsible for them to consume. You know, Africa has been the biggest market to the world because anything goes, anything sells, anything can be, you know, promoted in Africa and it will be bought. Be it used items, used towels, used bed sheets, used clothes, just bring them to Africa and they will be consumed. But we need to understand that we have an equal seat at the table, a seat of co-creation with God, not just consumption. So that is the second pillar for us to be able to understand that for us to transition and ride this wave of this new global reset, Africans must transform their thinking from consumption to co-creation. Now, the third one is, for the last so many years, we have heard a lot about the potential of Africa. You know, Africa's got a lot of potential. It has a young population. You know, it has got minerals. It has got all these things. You know, it has been potentiality for Africa. So the third pillar is we need to move away from potential to a place of power and purpose. Our leaders should stop talking about the potential that Africa has. Our seminars and our symposiums and our conferences should move away from talking about the potential that Africa has. I have intentionally not talked about the potential. I know we'll talk about Africa as a young population. Africa's population is growing. Soon it will be this and the other. All these potentials, we need to move away from them and come to a place of power and purpose. So as I summarize and end this session, like we said, they want the session to be a plenary. So we want it to be as interactive, questions, additional thoughts, counter positions, and etc. are welcome. I would want us to take these as our three key pillars. Whenever you are involved in anything, think about these three things. One, you have an equal seat at the table. So when it comes to technology, when it comes to infrastructure, when it comes to fashion, when it comes to society, when it comes to culture, everything, you just know you have an equal seat at the table. Second thing is consumption. Whatever you can consume, you can also create. Whatever is made for consumption, you have the power to also create it. Then the third one is potential must move to a place of power and a place of purpose. Potential in words does not help Africa get anywhere. Africa must move to a place of power and a place of purpose beyond potential. So I would want to end the presentation there and encourage us. I'll hand over back to Dr. Florence, who has been moderating the session. Then you can help us guide the discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Wow, what an insightful presentation. right from defining what the global reset is to identifying the key characteristics within this global reset up till providing us with pillars of guidance. So the chat room is open. Please do type your question. We will take it, we will share it, and maybe I'll give chance to Gordon Sebuguzi. Is it possible for you to unmute? If not, then you will share your question in the chat. Yes, thank you for the claps and the appreciations for this discussion. Please do type these questions in the chat.
There's a question in the chat section from Samuel Bagonza.
This was for, I believe this was for Solomon's presentation. Maybe we can share it here. Africa is the most natural resource endowed continent, yet we continue to beg for aid. Did God put money before the monkeys instead of bananas? That was Bagonza Samuel. Stephen, I think this talks into the potential. Maybe you want to respond to that.
Yeah, I think this one squarely falls in the thinking that we don't have an equal seat at the table. That is why Africa believes that there is someone who is at the table, they are seated on the floor. You remember the story of Lazarus and the rich man. You know, we believe that we are that Lazarus who we were just entitled to crumbs, or someone has to make a decision on what we receive. It is just from the thinking that we don't have an equal seat at the table, but also the thinking that someone is out there who is meant to create for me to consume. That's the mindset of the African. You know, we cannot create. Even we ourselves, we talk about, oh, is it made in Uganda? Oh, it is terrible. You know, I want made in this, made in the other, because we think that there is someone out there who is the creator, we are the consumer. And yet we see that in Genesis chapter 2, God brought his creation to man. Then man named, and whatever man named, that thing became. So I believe that responds to that mindset.
Okay, thank you very much. We have appreciations as well from Yoweri, from Sylvia, and also from Godson. He just wanted to pass a vote of thanks for the inspirations in the presentation. Thank you, Pastor Stephen. And then we have a question from Moses. Wow, wonderful presentation. Surely we do need to get to the table where we all have the same authority at this table. But how are we going to unleash the potential if we are also getting to make the decisions on that table than taking on what's being decided on the table? Stephen, do you get that?
Okay. Oh, the one from Moses, eh?
Yes, please.
Okay, where he affirms that, yes, we deserve a place on the table, but how are we going to unleash the potential? Or we also getting to make the decisions on the table than taking on what's being decided on the table. Now, this is where the new global reset is coming into play. You will see we have very excellent examples across Africa. You know, we saw what just neighbors here, the Tanzanians, I do not know the latest right now, but the times during Magufuli, where there were certain decisions that were made, you know, and Tanzania decided to fund certain projects from within. Obviously, there's going to be a fight because there are some people who want to keep us in that place where we feel we are not on the table. But by Africa taking charge of its own destiny, its own problems, developing solutions for its own problems, that's how we're going to begin to activate our potential. When you have something that is of use and you don't use it, it will remain a resource, but only it becomes resourceful only when you begin to exploit it or to use it. And I even personally, I mean, the journey of adding value is the beginning. I believe in that a lot. But adding value should go beyond just adding value so that others may consume it. We as Africans should also be able to consume our own products, our own innovations, our own thinkings, because in that way, you find that we begin to become self-sufficient. You look at a country like North Korea. North Korea is closed out to the entire world. But if you look at North Korea today, and in the area of cyber security and cyber exploitations, North Korea has got one of the best when it comes to exploiting cyber security and things like that, because they do it within and through themselves. They've not gone out to universities outside to learn how to do that, but they've realized that if we focus on the resources we have, we can be able to get a seat at the table. So the way to unleash potential is to begin to exploit and consume it. Because when you consume it, you give feedback on why Ugandan coffee is not good. And then the person producing it will improve it. So that is the only way we can begin to unleash and break the potential that we have. I see another question here from Oloyo Jock. It says, names give form, form determines function, and function gives purpose. Heritage gives identity, and identity leads to destiny. Please throw more light on the relationship between naming and destiny. Thank you for the way to bring scripture alive. I'll just give you the example of, you remember in Genesis, I think it's chapter 17, where God, he himself, wanted to do something through Abraham. But he first of all had to change Abraham's name. We see it in many other places. Sarai, also, her name had to be changed to Sarah, princess. We see Simon Peter, which is rock. Many other people's names, Jacob was changed to Israel because God wanted to align their names to dictate their destinies. And that's a principle. When he comes to man and says, please name, he's saying, decide what this thing is going to become. Decide what this physical thing, what this economic thing, this political thing, this cultural thing, decide what it's going to become. That is the connection between a name and a destiny. God practices it with Abraham, and we see it coming to pass. He was not just having fun saying that, let me just give Abraham a longer name than the one he had before. But that's a spiritual principle, because every time you call out a name, you are prophesying. Because every time you call out Abraham, 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 you are prophesying and speaking into what he is meant to be. So that's the connection between names and destiny. Sorry, Flora, I'm just running through the...
Yes, please. The next one is from Faith Kisache.
Thank you, Pastor Ochola. How then can we help our generation to move from thinking about potential to actually putting it into practice? Is that the first question? Then the broken systems that have already been named by the world, how can we, the aspiring creations, rename them? Okay, the first one is, how do we mobilize the generation? This summit is one of the ways. I believe Inspire is, the last 10 years, this is what Inspire has been doing, to mobilize the generation, because once we reach a critical number, then there will be a reset in the thinking of the Africans. The first thing is, you as a person, who are the people around you? You must become an influence to them and cause them to also become an influence. We use the Jesus's model. Jesus chose 12 disciples. He lost one along the way, but he influenced those, and up until today, we are products of that influence. He lived with them. He passed on his thinking. He passed on his practices. He passed on his beliefs. And that is the way we are going to do this, by discipling the people immediately around us. That's the only way we're going to begin to pass on this thinking about potential and putting it into practice. And even in your own life, the things you begin to do in your area of work or area of vocation, begin to apply that thinking. Number one, I have an eco seat. Number two, I'm a co-creator. I'm not just a consumer. Number three, I have the power to transform potential into purpose. So you need to begin to live that philosophy, even you yourself. Yeah, I'll just run through quickly. I believe the place at the table for Africa is not an issue per session, but the preparedness to make herself heard. For instance, in Uganda, we know that the value of oil is in petroleum products, but why are we constructing a pipeline, not a refinery? Wow, I mean, this one now you've begun to think, you have begun to claim your place. You have begun to claim your place. If you're passionate about this, take this question beyond this chat room. Take it to until it gets into policy. I think Solomon was talking about this kind of thing. You know, when we have, you get infected with something, you begin to push because, you know, I have a seat at the table. Hello, sir. Please correct me. Suppose Lazarus settled for not less than the crumbs. Would this message be more interesting? Please comment. Wow, this one seems to be taking me at a different tangent. I don't understand. I use that as an example. I didn't mean that Lazarus should not have settled for crumbs from the rich man. I believe Jesus also used that story to pass on another message. But in this case, I did not mean to say that Lazarus did the wrong thing. He should have settled for more than just crumbs. That was just an example that I used. Most of the things we use to manufacture and process right here in the Pearl of Africa are imported from the Western world. What can we do about this to bring about our own power in co-creation? Because even the technology we are following and basing on is right from the Western world. I believe it's a process. It takes time. It takes time. You will be surprised when you visit some of these places where we feel downtrodden, they're useless. You go to places like Katwe, you go to places like Kisenyi, and you find people doing things which are a bit interesting. Many of the things that you see being imported, some of them can be made by these different people in these different places. And yes, you're right that a lot of the technology is based in the Western world. I mean, they have taken strides and they have gone ahead, but it doesn't mean that we cannot catch up. I personally believe that yes, our products may not be up to standard of the where most of the products of the world are today, but that is not a product of who we are. It doesn't mean that is what we shall always produce. You look at China, for example. China, made in China, everything was substandard, but they have perfected their art. They've taken up niches in technology and all these different things, and they have gotten better. And I believe even us, Africa, once we begin to focus on these things, the people who are innovating these products, yes, we might be basing on Western world technologies, and it is, but with time, we can innovate our own and even surpass some of these others. It's a matter of time. This resonates so much with the series that I'm following up on in my church. This is Ben Rolias. Africans need to love or care for each other. We seem to hate each other. How do we learn to love each other? How do we go from here so that it's not theoretical? Sanyu is concerned that first of all, there's the love thing, and then secondly, how do we not just let inspire, whatever we learn from inspire, remain as theory? I mean, love, that one we know the Bible teaches us a lot about love, a lot about unity, and there is the hatred, you rightfully say, between not only Africans, but there is a seed of hatred, and we know that comes from the pits of hell. It comes from the devil himself. We need to be examples. We need to be the ones who hold out the light. We who are the children of God, we are the ones who have seen the love of Christ being shown unto us. We need to be the ones to take this love out. And this love extends beyond the walls of the church. It extends to loving your nation, loving your country, loving your people, and then that will be transferred on and on and on and on. Now, how do we make this thing practical and not theoretical? Begin where you are. If it is at home, go through that thinking process of those three things. Anything you buy at home, anything you do at home, be it at work, begin to walk through that three-step process. Do I have an equal seat at the table on this thing? How can I be a co-creator, not just a consumer? How can I transform? So it is something that the practicality is basically now us to begin to apply it. Flora, probably I'll hand over. I don't know if there's anything else. I see.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Pastor Stephen. The last one is just an appreciation. Most of my takeaways are coming from you, Sir Ochola. Thank you for allowing God to use you, and I'm eternally blessed. Ahumza, your hand is up. Unfortunately, you can't unmute, but you can type a quick question, or we will have it when we go back to the
He's now
joint
able to
session.
unmute.
He has unmuted.
Sorry?
He has
Okay.
unmuted.
Yeah, thank you. My question is
Okay.
now in the area where you find we need to relate with other nations as Africans so that we cannot be making for ourselves a name and getting to understand that God has created us to relate as humans. How can we relate with others, keeping our advantage and keeping on that level of the same table, but now relating with others? How can we do it so that we cannot be separated as Africans, but now knowing that the reality is that they are ahead of us? Is there something we can learn from them? You get me, Pastor?
Okay, I hope I do get you. I'm assuming you're saying that we sit at this table, but there are some people who in reality are ahead of us. Is that, then you're asking, how do we relate with those kind of people? Is that what you're asking, Ahumuza?
Yes, that's what I'm asking. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, most definitely. You know that some of these people are ahead of us, but you need to also understand that there are certain things you're not going to compromise on. For the sake of, it becomes very difficult at times when you're in a place of disadvantage. You can mix things up, but we need to be able to understand and know that we will stand our ground, even in areas where we are weak. We will stand our ground. I'll give an example of the time when we had the battle of passing the Anti-Homosexuality Act, which became law. So many things were being dangled in the background, which were, you could see it was a play of table and a side seat of the table. You know what? Where they'll say, we shall withdraw this. We shall no longer give this. That was a clear play of showing that, hey, you are not on the table, but there are certain things we have been merciful to give to you. If you do not accept what we want, we are going to withdraw that. But then Uganda stood its ground and said, we don't care. You withdraw whatever you want. That is like saying, we also have a right to sit at the table. You withdraw whatever you want, keep away whatever you want, but we shall survive. And I mean, Uganda is here till today. We have survived. Of course, we've suffered, we've had pains, we've had all these different things, but Uganda has survived. And it has caused Uganda now, we can still relate with those people. The very same people, some of them are bringing back some of the things that I put out. So yeah, I would, that's my response towards that.
Okay, thank you very much, Pastor Stephen. We will have just one more question from Oloyo Joke. as we come to the end of this session. Yes,
And thank you
please.
so much, Dr. Florence. Yes, thank you
Yes.
so much, Dr. Florence. And Elder, thank you so much for elevating our thinking. And right now, we are focused mostly about prosperity economically, economic prosperity, creating products or systems, and then multiplying them to forming industries and markets. So my question is related to politics. You see, when the economic people produce the money, but the people in politics are also acting as a source of leakage, then there are some are going to be discouraged. So basically, good economics means good politics, and vice versa is true. So when you're in an environment where the politics is poor, somehow, no matter how good the economic people are doing that things, there's going to be a leakage, and overall, that progress which is supposed to be achieved wouldn't be achieved. So for me, the way I look at it is that we might have to revamp our political system, okay? Because if we can revamp our political system, then we shall be able to close the leakages, which the leakages of the value which is being produced by economic people, and then over a period of time, you shall be able to see the progress. So economics and politics, they go hand in hand. You cannot just focus in one and then ignore the other. Because they have to go, and it's just like the left hand and then the right hand. When you're washing the utensil, you use both of them. When you're moving from point A to point B, you use both. The left leg is the economics, then the right leg is the what? Is the politics. So as we are talking about as well, because they support each other. That is question one. And then the second question is, God seems to have created a model of creation. So I don't know, you're very creative. I don't know what model of creation that has been revealed to you that you can maybe share with us, a model that can be learned and replicated over and over and over again and in a 360 degrees. And thank you so much. Blessings.
Thank you so much, Olojo, for that question. Those two questions. The first one, basically, I would say that, yes, many of the questions could have rotated around economics and production and etc. But when God brought to Adam to name, whatever Adam named, meaning that be it culture, be it politics, even the politics you're talking about that the politicians mess up and etc. It is because the children of God have not named what their politics should be like. They have not stood up to name it so that whatever they name it, it becomes that. It's unlimited. Everything that is around us, God created. So he brought creation. He did not bring some of the creation. He brought the entire creation for Adam to name. So everything that is happening around us today, it is because we have failed to name, or we have misnamed, or others have named them something else. That is it. So anything that you come in touch with, be it politics, be it physical products, be it culture, be it whatever it is, you have got the opportunity to name it what you want it to be. So I think that kind of like answers that. But the second question you're asking about the model, what model of creation would be the best to use? I would say once you take your place at the table, and two, once you move your mind to a mind of a creator and not just a consumer. And then once you begin to see the resources around you and say, how can this move from being a potential to being a thing of purpose? I am telling you, the way to create will automatically come. There is no model I can say that this is the way. As long as you switch on that thinking which goes in those three planes, I'll tell you, even problems that come your way, you'll find you're just solving them without even having to get into what model was used. Yes, so that's what I would give you, Olojo.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much again, Stephen. I think these are our appreciations. Thank you, sir. Please also see how we can discourage ourselves from settling up for crumbs God has so much in store for believers. Lazarus gave us the bare minimum, but that is not our portion in Jesus' name. Angela says, and actually, politics and leadership begin from our families, workplaces, church, and then the nation and world at large. Thank you very much for the key takeaways. A mindset change is critical. It's a critical step too. Thank you for the key takeaways. Stephen, we again appreciate you for this presentation and inspiring, challenging talk. God has done his part. We must do our part. And you have given us direction by the 3 pillars, the biblically inspired pillars, moving away from consumption to co-creation, from potential to a place of power and purpose, and the fact that we have equal seats at the table. We are capable. So thank you. Thank you all, friends, for joining this room. We are going to move back to the main room for a wrap-up and close of our meeting today. Over to you, admin.
Okay, you can just leave the room. You can just leave the
Members
room,
can
the small
leave.
button. Yes.
Okay, they will join the main room.
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.